The hum of the ship was the only sound between them. The corridor stretched long and sterile, illuminated by cold strips of white light that pulsed with the rhythm of the reactor buried deep in the vessel's spine. Commander Elias Kane had been aboard alien craft before, but never one like this. Everything was too quiet, too precise. Every panel fitted seamlessly into the next, every shadow calculated as if the walls themselves were listening. And maybe they were. The Xylan never built anything without purpose, and the woman walking beside him was proof of that. She moved like gravity bent to her will, tall and graceful, encased in a black biosuit that gleamed like polished obsidian. Her skin was an impossible shade of blue, luminous even under the ship's artificial light. Her eyes, gold, sharp, and unreadable, didn't so much look at things as through them. She was Captain Sayrix of the Xylan Vanguard, the kind of alien diplomat the fleet only whispered about in mess halls. And now, somehow, he was her human liaison on a joint patrol mission neither side fully trusted. They hadn't spoken in 10 minutes. The silence felt heavy, stretching into the kind of awkward that begged to be filled. Elias adjusted his collar, trying to think of something. Anything that wouldn't sound idiotic. But the longer he stared at her, the less his brain cooperated. The way the lights rippled across her pale braids, the way the faint pulse of her skin seemed to sync with the ship's heartbeat. It was mesmerizing. And that's when he muttered it, barely above a whisper, a thought meant for no one but himself. "She's beautiful," he said under his breath. "I'd marry her if I could." The words left him like a sigh, a human thing, quiet, foolish, harmless. At least that's what he thought until she stopped walking. Sayrix turned her head slowly, her eyes glinting gold beneath the sterile light. "You would what?" Her voice was smooth, low, and far too calm. Elias froze, every muscle in his body deciding mutiny was the best option. "Oh no," he muttered. No, you didn't. That wasn't." She stepped closer, and suddenly the corridor felt much smaller. "Repeat what you said, Commander," she said. Her accent curled around the edges of every word. Deliberate, dangerous. Elias felt his mouth go dry. It was nothing, just atmospheric interference. "You know how sound carries on your ships." "Our ships," she corrected. "And sound doesn't carry. It's absorbed, cataloged, and analyzed." He swallowed hard. "Of course it is. Which means," she continued, stepping closer until he could see the faint bioluminescence tracing her cheekbones. "I heard you perfectly." Elias wanted to melt through the floor. "You see, in human culture," he said carefully, "sometimes we say things we don't mean. It's like a compliment but exaggerated. Friendly. Totally platonic." Sayrix tilted her head, the motion both curious and predatory. "So, when you say you would marry someone, it is a friendly remark?" "Absolutely," he said too quickly. "Happens all the time. I once said I'd marry a coffee machine if it made another cup." "You equate me to an appliance?" she asked. No, you're way more advanced than a coffee machine." Her expression didn't change, but the air between them warmed dangerously. "You humans have strange courtship traditions," she said. "That wasn't courtship," he insisted. "That was stupidity. And yet," she said, turning away again, "you spoke truth without intention. That makes it purer." He blinked. "What?" "You spoke as your kind does when the mind is quiet," she said. "When instinct, not calculation, rules." They walked in silence again, though now it hummed differently, alive, electric. Elias tried not to notice the subtle smirk curving her lips, or the fact that every step she took seemed to draw him in. The ship's corridor opened into the observation deck, an enormous window revealing the nebula outside. A vast sea of crimson and violet gas swirling around a dying star. She stopped before it, her reflection glowing faintly against the glass. "Human speech fascinates me," she said softly. "So much emotion hidden in noise." "We're complicated," he said. "That's one word for it." Her gaze lingered on the nebula for a moment longer before shifting back to him. "Do you mean what you said?" Elias blinked. "You mean about the marriage thing?" No, of course not. I mean, look at you. You're you and I'm me. You assume difference forbids connection, she said. I find that limiting. He exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. Look, I wasn't trying to offend you. You didn't. Then why are you smiling like that? Because, she said, turning to face him fully. You humans never realize when you've already started a conversation that can't be undone. I'm not following. You whispered into the silence, she said. The silence whispered back. Now it knows. Knows what? That a human spoke to a Xylan as if she were not above him, but beside him. Elias frowned. I didn't mean. You meant exactly what you said, she interrupted. And for that I should thank you. He blinked again, thrown off balance. Thank me? Yes, she said. Because no one among my kind has ever looked at me and thought of me as something more than function. You looked and saw beauty. That word does not exist in my language. The admission hit him harder than it should have. That's awful, he said. It's efficient, she replied. But sometimes, efficiency is lonely. Her gaze softened for the first time. You gave me a word I did not know I needed. Elias shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to be embarrassed or moved. You're welcome, he said at last, and she almost smiled again. Perhaps, she said. But know this, human. When a Xylan hears truth, she cannot forget it. Nor can she ignore it. Before he could ask what that meant, the deck's alarms blared, sharp and metallic. Red lights flared across the walls, and a voice boomed in Xylan tongue through the comms. Sayrix turned sharply, her calm replaced by command. Pirates, she said. They've found us. She pressed a hand to her wrist console, her armor's surface rippling as it sealed tighter around her body. You will stay behind me, she ordered. Elias snorted despite the adrenaline spiking through his veins. Not really my thing. That was not a request. Neither was my life's mission, he muttered, drawing his sidearm. She shot him a sharp glance, but there was something else in it now, something fierce and protective. You speak too much, she said, stepping forward as the corridor filled with the sound of weapons charging. But perhaps I will see if you fight as honestly as you speak. And with that, the airlock ahead exploded in a burst of white light. The airlock doors blew apart in a roar of white flame and pressure. Metal shards spiraled like razors through the corridor, embedding into the walls. Sayrix moved faster than human sight, her armor shimmering into a slick, adaptive form that caught the first barrage of plasma bolts. The alien pirates stormed through the breach, hulking brutes in scavenged armor, their weapons burning with crude red light. Elias had seen their kind before in deep space. Raids, merciless, half-starved survivors of forgotten wars. But seeing them now, in the narrow belly of a Xylan ship, felt different. The air was alive with ozone, fear, and fury. He fired twice, hitting one square in the chest, but the bolt barely slowed it down. It took Sayrix's strike, an elegant, blinding arc of blue energy from her palm, to drop the creature in a heap of smoke and broken metal. She turned to him sharply. Behind me, she barked, her voice layered with a distortion that was more command than sound. But Elias didn't move. I'm not hiding, he said through clenched teeth, ducking another bolt. The air crackled as he slid into cover beside her. You're outnumbered. Then they die faster. He didn't finish. A pirate lunged from the smoke, claws glowing red-hot, but Sayrix met him head-on. The corridor flashed blue again. The attacker hit the wall so hard the ship groaned. Elias had never seen anything like it. Her movements were beautiful, but in a way that terrified him. Each strike was precise, each step planned as if she could see seconds ahead. It was less combat and more choreography, the kind humans could only dream of mastering. And yet, somehow her rhythm changed every time he moved, adjusting for him, protecting him. He caught himself watching her again, even as chaos tore around them. The way her white braids swung behind her, the sharp focus in her eyes, the faint energy halo rising from her armor. It was impossible not to. He shook it off, forcing his aim steady. "You're going to get yourself killed doing that," he yelled over the noise. She parried another strike, twisting with inhuman speed. "Doing what?" "Shielding me." "You said I was beautiful," she said, her voice strangely calm amid the battle. "Now see what beauty does when it's angry." He almost laughed, but another explosion cut him off. A shockwave hurled him backward into a wall. For a moment, everything blurred. The scent of burnt metal, the ringing in his ears, her voice shouting something distant and furious. Then darkness flickered. When he opened his eyes, Sayrix was kneeling over him. Smoke drifted through the ruined corridor, orange lights flashing overhead. Her armor hissed softly as it reconfigured, her body leaning close enough that he could feel the heat radiating from it. "You're hurt," she said. He touched the side of his head and felt blood. "Just a scratch. You humans lie poorly." She pressed her palm to his temple, and light spilled from her fingers. The pain dulled instantly, warmth flooding through his veins. "That's one hell of a first aid kit," he muttered. "Biological restoration interface," she corrected. "Don't speak. Kind of hard not to win." "Wow, okay. That's weirdly nice." Her lips curved faintly. "You're remarkably calm for someone nearly vaporized." "Trust me," he said, blinking up at her. "This isn't even my worst first date." Her expression froze, unreadable, but something changed in her eyes. A flicker of something like amusement. "First date?" she echoed. "You humans equate battle with courtship?" "Only when it's this intense," he replied. For a second, he wasn't sure if she'd hit him or laugh. Instead, she stood and offered her hand. "You're absurd," she said. "And yet..." She looked down the ruined hall, smoke curling between the flashing lights. "And yet, I find myself entertained." He grinned despite himself. "Glad to be of service." She didn't smile, but her tone softened. "You risked yourself without hesitation. Most soldiers freeze when facing our enemies." "Maybe I'm just bad at freezing," he said. "Or maybe," she said, her golden eyes narrowing. "You meant what you whispered earlier." Elias stiffened. "You're really not letting that go, huh?" "It's difficult to forget truth once heard," she said, turning away. "In my world, words bind." "You mean like vows?" "Something older," she murmured. "Older than promise. Older than choice." "That's comforting," he muttered. "So what me saying I'd marry you counts as what? A blood oath?" She glanced back over her shoulder. "If you were Xylan," she said quietly, "you'd already be bound to me by now." His throat went dry. "Good thing I'm human, then." "Is it?" she asked. He didn't answer, and she didn't look back again. The ship shuddered as the engines reignited, breaking the silence. "We're moving," Elias said. "Correct," Sayrix replied. "I ordered the jump drive prepared before the attack. They won't catch us again." "Smart. Necessary." She paused, looking at him. "You fought well, Commander Kane." "You too, Captain Sayrix." "Do not flatter me," she said. "Your kind speaks praise too easily." "Then what should I say?" "Say what you mean." "Fine," he said, meeting her gaze. "You saved my life." Her eyes flickered. "And you risked yours. Guess that makes us even." She took a step closer, her presence once again filling the air. "No," she said softly. "It doesn't." He was about to ask what she meant when the comms crackled to life. The ship's AI voice, cold, mechanical, unfeeling, spoke in Xylan dialect. Whatever it said made her expression darken. "Translation?" Elias asked. "There's another ship," she said, her tone hardening. "Human. Military signature." "Ours?" "Not anymore," she said, her golden eyes narrowing. "They've gone rogue." "What do you mean, rogue?" "They're transmitting an order your capture." He froze. "Wait, what?" "Your people believe you've defected," she said. "Helping me has consequences." "Great," he muttered. "Guess this day keeps getting better." "Do not worry," she said, the faintest trace of a smirk touching her lips. "They will not take you." Because you'll help me? Because, she said, stepping close enough that her breath brushed his cheek. You're under Xylan protection now. Before he could respond, the ship's alarms blared again, and the stars outside twisted into a tunnel of light as the jump drive activated. The floor trembled beneath them, and the world stretched thin. Sayrix turned toward the viewport, her hand tightening briefly on his shoulder. Hold on, human, she said. You've chosen your truth. Now see where it takes you. The corridor flared white. The jump tore through space like a wound, leaving a halo of fractured light behind the ship. For a moment, there was only silence. A deep, almost reverent quiet that filled every corridor, as though the universe itself was holding its breath. Elias leaned against the wall, trying to steady himself. The stars outside stretched into infinity, frozen streaks of silver and blue beyond the glass. He had survived firefights, orbital drops, vacuum breaches, but never this. Never being hunted by his own. Sayrix stood at the center of the command deck, her silhouette framed by the glowing navigation core. Her armor dimmed, flowing like liquid metal as it adjusted to a more ceremonial form. Even weary, she radiated command. Her gaze flicked to him without turning her head. You're still bleeding, she said. It's fine, he replied. I've had worse. Humans say that often, she murmured. I've yet to meet one who truly means it. Then you haven't met enough of us, Elias said, straightening his jacket. We're stubborn like that. I've noticed. Her tone was measured, but beneath it he heard something, curiosity, maybe even faint admiration. Why risk yourself for me? She asked suddenly. You could have escaped when the pirates boarded. He met her eyes. Because that's what humans do. We protect people, even when it's stupid. Even strangers? Especially strangers, he said. That's the difference between surviving and living. She stared at him for a long moment, as if turning the words over in her mind. You speak like someone who has lost much, she said finally. I've lost enough to know what not to lose again. He wasn't sure why he said it, but he didn't regret it either. The soft hum of the ship filled the pause. When I was a child, she said, her voice low, I was told humans were volatile, driven by impulse, bound by emotion. My kind was warned never to trust your species. That's fair, Elias said. We don't always make it easy. And yet, she said, taking a slow step toward him, you risked yourself for someone you barely knew. Perhaps impulse has its value. He smiled faintly. It's gotten us this far. Sayrix's golden eyes softened, her voice a whisper. You confuse me, human. Good, he said. I like confusing people. No, she said, shaking her head slightly. It's not confusion of the mind, but of the pulse. Her hand touched her chest, over the faint glow of her core. When I look at you, it stirs something primitive, something forbidden. Elias swallowed, unsure whether to laugh or run. Forbidden sounds ominous. For my kind, connection with another species is considered contamination, she said. Emotion compromises precision. Attachment breeds chaos. And yet here you are, he said softly, standing next to chaos itself. She gave a faint, almost wistful smile. Yes, and it terrifies me. Before he could answer, the lights dimmed, and the ship's AI spoke again, its voice steady but urgent. Sayrix's expression shifted instantly from vulnerability to command. Report, she ordered. The holographic projection bloomed in front of her. Red dots scattered across a galactic map. Your fleet, she said grimly. They've locked onto our trajectory. You said the jump would hide us. It did. Briefly. They've recalibrated their sensors. They're fast learners, he said. They are human, she replied, her tone edged with irony. She moved to the controls, her fingers dancing across the console in a blur. We can't outrun them for long. Then we fight. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Wouldn't be the first time, he said. Sayrix turned sharply, her eyes narrowing. Do you always choose battle when retreat is wiser? Only when it matters. And this matters? You saved me. You didn't have to. He took a step closer, his voice steady. I don't abandon people who've risked themselves for me. Not my kind. Not yours. Something flickered in her gaze again, but she looked away. You don't understand what you're saying. Then explain it. If you fight beside me, she said, the bond between us will become real. You mean the whole vow thing you mentioned? Yes, she said. Among Xylan, shared blood in battle seals allegiance, and emotion amplifies it. You'd be bound to me by your own words. And you'd be bound to me, he said quietly. Yes, sounds fair to me. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The hum of the ship's engines filled the silence, deep and rhythmic. Then Sayrix reached forward, pressing her hand to his chest, just over his heart. The touch burned, not painfully, but with an intensity that sent a pulse through his veins. Her eyes glowed brighter, and he realized she was linking their biochemistries, something no Xylan had ever done with a human. There, she whispered. Now if you die, I will feel it. That's both reassuring and terrifying. Good, she said. Perhaps now you'll think before you speak. Not likely. She almost smiled again, but then the ship lurched violently. Alarms blared. Missiles incoming, Elias shouted. Brace for impact. The first blast rocked the hull, throwing them both to the floor. Sparks erupted from the ceiling. They're using graviton warheads, Sayrix hissed. One more hit and the hull will collapse. Can't you divert power to the shields? Already at maximum. Another explosion shook the ship. We're not going to make it, he said. We will, she replied firmly. How? Because you spoke truth to me. The universe favors those who do. That's not how physics works. It is how belief works. She sprinted to the control core, her armor glowing with energy. I can overload the reactor, create a distortion field. That'll kill you. Not if it's controlled. You can't be serious. I am Xylan, she said. We were born of stars. Dying for another is not the end. It's the return. He stood beside her, shaking his head. Then I'm staying. Elias, don't bother arguing. You said if I die, you'll feel it. That means you can't stop me. She glared at him, frustration flashing across her face. Then, to his surprise, she leaned closer and whispered, You're infuriating. I've been told. And reckless. That too. Her expression softened. And brave. For a moment, time froze between them, the alarms fading into a heartbeat rhythm that belonged to neither machine nor human. Then she pressed her palm to the console, the ship roaring alive with light. Hold on, she said. This will hurt. Story of my life. The world exploded in a white blaze as the reactor ignited. Space twisted, the stars shattering into rivers of color. When the light faded, there was silence again. Absolute perfect silence. Elias blinked, his body aching. The ship was whole, the damage gone, the air still humming with residual energy. What did you do? He asked. Sayrix stood by the viewport, her back to him, her braids glowing faintly. I gave us a second chance, she said softly. At what? At surviving. At understanding. She turned, her golden eyes glowing in the dim light. And perhaps at seeing if you truly meant what you whispered. The nebula that had once housed the Luminet's core burned quietly in the dark, a swirl of fading light that stretched like a scar across the void. Aaron drifted near its edge aboard his ship, watching the colors shift through layers of violet and gold. It had been weeks since the awakening, if weeks still meant anything out here. Every system he encountered hummed with faint harmonic residue. Every comm signal carried undertones of the same rhythm, a heartbeat the universe now shared. Humanity called it the song. Scientists tried to isolate its origin, military strategists tried to weaponize it, and philosophers declared it proof of divine intention. But Aaron knew better. It wasn't God or ghost. It was memory, and memory belonged to everyone. He spent his days cataloging the fragments left behind, mapping regions of space where the song resonated strongest. Each time he tuned into its frequency, he felt a twinge of her Salira, woven into the melody like breath between notes. She was everywhere now, part of the Luminet's living network, but also in him. Sometimes he heard her voice when the ship was quiet, whispering suggestions or gentle reprimands in that measured, melodic tone. "You still don't sleep enough," she'd murmur. "Neither do you," he'd answer automatically, and for a moment, the illusion was almost real. Yet each time her voice faded, the silence that followed felt heavier. She had become infinite, but he remained painfully finite. The human coalition had summoned him back several times already, demanding debriefs he never attended. They didn't understand what had changed. They wanted explanations, facts, data, a way to box the inexplicable. "You gave the universe a pulse," one report had said, "and we can't control it." That was the point. Still, he knew he couldn't drift forever. Eventually, belief demanded proof of its purpose. When a signal arrived one morning, a coded transmission in both human and Varan encryption, he almost ignored it. Then he saw the signature embedded in the waveform, the intertwined spirals of Salira's crest, pulsed in rhythm with his wrist. He didn't hesitate. The coordinates led him to the border between human and Varan territories, a quiet system with no name, only a dying sun and a scattering of asteroids. There, nestled among the debris, was a station. It wasn't on any chart, and it shouldn't have existed. Yet it looked familiar, its architecture a blend of human steel and Varan grace, polished metal meeting flowing crystal. The moment he docked, the airlock recognized his biometrics. "Welcome, Aaron Holt," said a voice that wasn't quite synthetic. "You have been expected." He froze. The tone, the cadence. It was her voice, altered but unmistakable. "Salira?" "Not exactly," the voice replied, "but close enough." The interior of the station glowed with soft blue light, walls alive with faint motion like ripples on water. Holograms shimmered as he passed, displaying fragments of data. Maps, equations, star charts overlaying pulses of the song. At the center of the main chamber stood a single crystalline console. "What is this place?" he asked. "A convergence hub," said the voice, "constructed after the awakening." The Luminet left instructions, and those who heard obeyed. It's a relay between minds that wish to connect, and those that remember. "And you?" "I am an echo of Salira, drawn from the network through your resonance signature. She left me here, for you." He stepped closer, his throat tight. "Why?" "Because you can still choose," said the echo. "You are unbound by the collective. The song connects, but does not command. That freedom makes you dangerous, and necessary." "Necessary for what?" "For balance," she said. "The song spreads faster than we predicted. Some worlds embrace it, others reject it violently. Fear, as always, spreads faster than understanding." The hologram shifted to show unrest across dozens of colonies. Riots, mass migrations, planets dividing over whether to silence or amplify the song. "They're afraid of losing themselves," Aaron murmured. "And they will," the echo said gently, "unless you teach them that connection doesn't erase individuality, it amplifies it." He stared at the projections, anger and sorrow twisting within him. "You're asking me to fix the universe." "No," she said. "I'm asking you to remind it why it chose to wake up." Her image flickered, stabilizing briefly into something almost solid. "The Luminet believed knowledge alone could unify life. You taught it belief. Now it's your task to teach belief responsibility." Aaron laughed softly, shaking his head. "Responsibility? Humans can barely agree on breakfast." "Then start there," she said, smiling faintly. "Small truths build larger ones." "And what about you?" he asked. "Where's the real Salira?" "Everywhere," the echo whispered, "and nowhere you can reach." He stood there for a long time, the hum of the station merging with the beat beneath his skin. "If she were here," he said quietly, "what would she tell me?" The echo tilted her head. "That you never stopped believing in the impossible. And that's why she trusted you." The projection dimmed, leaving him alone again. Yet something had changed. The hum beneath his wrist had deepened, resonating with the entire station. The walls began to shift, forming an archway of light. "Destination?" the console asked. He hesitated. "Everywhere people are afraid." "Confirmed," said the system. The station began to dissolve, folding itself into a ship of pure energy around him. When the transformation completed, he stood aboard a vessel that seemed carved from the song itself. Its walls shimmered like starlight trapped in glass, its engines silent but infinite. He barely had time to breathe before the ship moved, not by propulsion, but by thought. He focused on the coordinates of the nearest conflict zone, and the stars blinked, replaced by the fiery skies of a world tearing itself apart. Below, human and Varan fleets clashed in orbit, their weapons firing pulses of light that shattered atmosphere. The irony stung. Two species who had birthed peace together now destroying it out of fear. "End transmission," he muttered. "Project voice." The ship obeyed. Across the battlefield, comm channels flickered to life, filled with his voice carried on the song's frequency. "Stop," he said. The word wasn't a command but a resonance, a tone that vibrated through the hulls of every vessel. "You feel it, don't you? The rhythm beneath everything you are. That's not an enemy signal. It's your heartbeat." The firing slowed, confusion spreading. "You're afraid of being forgotten," Aaron continued. "But connection doesn't erase you, it remembers you. Every thought, every act, every breath becomes part of something bigger, not control but continuity. That's what the song means." For a moment silence held. Then, slowly, one ship powered down its weapons. Another followed. The fleets drifted apart, their lights dimming one by one until only the hum of the song remained. The transmission cut automatically, leaving Aaron trembling from the weight of what he'd done. "That was reckless," said a familiar voice. He turned. Salira's echo stood beside him again, shimmering faintly. "You're starting wars with words now. Better than ending them with weapons," he said. She smiled. "You've learned to speak like a Varan diplomat. And you've learned to haunt like a human ghost." They stood together, watching the world below as peace, or something close to it, settled like dust after a storm. "You'll have to do this again," she said. "Many times. The song will keep spreading, and with it, misunderstanding. Then I'll keep going," he said, "until people stop hearing it as noise. And when they do, then I'll listen instead." The echo reached out, her hand passing through his shoulder but leaving warmth behind. "You're still the only human I believe in," she said softly. "Don't prove me wrong." "Never," he said. "Not while there's breath left in me." The echo faded, leaving the ship bathed in quiet starlight. Aaron closed his eyes, letting the hum guide him once more. For the first time since the rift, he felt something close to peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because it wasn't. The universe was imperfect, chaotic, beautiful, and alive. Humanity had been given a choice, and for once, it wasn't between destruction and survival. It was between silence and song. And as long as one human still believed in the impossible, the stars would keep singing. Dawn came slowly to the new world below, a soft cascade of light washing over the horizon. The ship rested in orbit, silent and scarred, its hull reflecting the gold and violet glow of a planet untouched by war. Elias stood at the viewport, his reflection a ghost against the stars. It had been 3 days since they passed through the veil, 3 days of quiet, of trying to understand what had happened between them, and what it meant that they had survived something no human or Xylan ever had. The bond still hummed faintly beneath his skin, a pulse that wasn't entirely his own. He could feel her even when she wasn't in the room, the rhythm of her breath, the steady calm of her thoughts, the faint ache of exhaustion still lingering in her body. It wasn't telepathy. It was something deeper, like two songs that could no longer be played apart. Behind him, soft footsteps broke the silence. "You haven't slept," Sarek said. Her voice was quieter now, gentler, stripped of its command. "Could say the same for you," Elias replied without turning. You've been recalibrating that console for hours. I've been watching, she said. Your kind stars. They feel warmer than ours. He smiled faintly. You mean this system? No, she said, stepping beside him. You. Her reflection joined his in the glass. Taller, radiant, her eyes like captured suns. You confuse peace with stillness, she continued. But peace is not the absence of movement. It's knowing when not to fight. He glanced at her. You sound like you've been hanging around humans too long. Perhaps, she said, her lips curving slightly. Or perhaps humans have been hiding something worth learning. They stood together for a while, watching the sunlight creep across the planet's oceans. You said this world was safe, Elias murmured. Safe, she repeated. Not simple. There's a difference? Always. She turned to face him fully. The veil didn't just carry us away, Elias. It marked us. The wild between stars does not let go of those it touches. It changes us. He frowned. You mean the bond? Yes. It will not fade. Not in this lifetime, not in any. So what? You're saying we're connected forever? In every sense that word means. That's a long time. Then do not waste it. Something in her tone made him look up. She wasn't smiling now. Her expression was raw, open, the steel stripped away. I was born in a place where emotion was weakness, she said softly. Where truth was edited, and love, if it existed, was hidden behind function. When you whispered those words, I thought them foolish. Beautiful, yes, but impossible. And now? He asked. Now, she said, her voice trembling. I know why your kind fights so hard to protect what it loves. It's the one thing the void cannot take. Elias swallowed, his chest tightening. Sayrix? Don't, she whispered, stepping closer. Don't make this fragile. It's not, he said. Nothing about you is fragile. Her hand rose, fingers brushing the side of his face. Her touch sent warmth through him that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. You humans burn too quickly, she said. We have to, he whispered. The universe is too cold otherwise. Then teach me, she said. Teach me how to burn. The space between them vanished. Her forehead rested against his, her breath mingling with his own. The bond flared, soft, not painful, just light. He could feel her heartbeat sync with his, her thoughts like faint echoes. There was no need for words. In that moment, everything that divided them, species, duty, fear, fell away. There was only the rhythm of life shared between two beings who had defied everything that said they shouldn't. When she finally drew back, her eyes were brighter than he had ever seen them. Our people will come, she said. Yours to hunt, mine to question. Then we'll face them, he said. Together. Together, she echoed, and it sounded like a vow. The planet rotated slowly below, its surface glittering with the promise of something new. This world, he said. We should name it, she considered. Names are promises, she said. Then let it be one. She thought for a long moment, her gaze drifting to the golden horizon. Liara, she said at last. In my tongue, it means shared breath. Fitting, he said. We almost lost ours a dozen times. She smiled faintly. Then may this world remind us to keep it. They descended to the surface later that day. The air was thin but sweet, filled with the scent of rain and metal. Forests of crystalline trees shimmered in the wind, their leaves scattering light in waves. They built a small shelter beside a river that glowed faintly at night, its current singing in tones that reminded Elias of Earth's oceans. For the first time in years, he felt something close to peace. Sayrix moved through the alien landscape like she belonged there, her armor replaced by softer robes woven from threads that responded to her movements. He watched her once, as she stood in the river, the light catching her hair, and he whispered again, softly but not quietly this time. She's beautiful. She turned immediately, eyes meeting his, and this time she smiled. I heard that, she said. I know. And you still dare to speak it? Always. She stepped toward him through the shallow water, droplets trailing down her arms like falling stars. Then perhaps you should know, she said, that in my culture, when one repeats truth aloud, it becomes eternal. Then I'll keep saying it, he said, every day. Careful, she said, her tone teasing now. You may end up bound again. Then let it be binding. She laughed softly, the sound blending with the wind. You are impossible, Elias Kane. And you, he said, taking her hand, are unforgettable. Years later, the legends would spread across both stars, of a human who loved an alien, and an alien who taught a human how to see the universe differently. They would say their bond held even beyond death, that their shared light still shimmered in the night skies of Liara, whispering to travelers who dared to dream. And those who listened closely enough swore they could hear a voice carried on the solar wind, soft, amused, eternal. She's beautiful.